Hello and welcome to The Debrief. I'm your host. My name is Seth Ressler, and this is the show where we help Detroit artists and entertainers further their career. Today on the show, we are talking about electronic press kits, something that is better known as EPKs. Maybe you've heard that term thrown around. It's something that's really useful when you are trying to pitch yourself as an artist or an entertainer to local media outlets. And yet I'm always surprised by the number of artists and entertainers who not only don't have an EPK, but they don't even know what one is. So we're going to find out today. We're going to talk about how you can build one and how you can help, how you can use it to help pitch yourself to local media outlets. I want to welcome my guest today, who is a media relations account executive at Catalyst Media Factory. Catalyst Media Factory provides the support growing businesses need to succeed through media relations and social media campaigns. Welcome, Kamryn Lowler.
Hi, thanks for having me, Seth.
Oh, thanks for coming on. I'm really glad that you're here. Before we get into it, tell me a little bit about Catalyst Media and who you guys normally work with on a regular basis.
Yeah, so Catalyst Media Factory is located downtown Detroit. We have all Metro Detroit clients. We work with small businesses, nonprofits, but in the summers, we're very busy with music festivals. So we work with Arts, Beats, and Eats. We work with the Ann Arbor Art Fair. We also do Rock and Rides just happened, and we're gearing up for the brand new Taco Fest in Royal Oak.
Very cool, very cool. All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk about electronic press kits.
Okay,
And
yeah,
I'm just
let's
going to
do
call them EPKs from now on.
Gotcha.
What is an electronic press kit, and what are EPKs for?
So an electronic press kit is kind of the way that you're going to define yourself as an artist. You're going to include everything that you think the media and businesses, if you're pitching yourself, might want to know. I think a lot of people think of EPKs, they don't need them because they already have websites, but websites are more fan-facing, people that might want to buy your art, come to your shows. But EPKs are what you can send to the media to just pull the information from, to write up a great story on your band, your art, and everything like that.
Very cool. So I often think about EPKs as, look, journalists have a lot to do.
Yes, absolutely.
And you know, having worked at radio stations and media outlets myself, I know that, you know, we're all doing more with less these days.
And every day it's more that way.
Right. So I often tell people the idea is if a journalist wants to write about you, make it as easy as possible by putting everything in one spot.
Exactly. Any and everything that you think they might need. So we like to tell people, you know, have your bio, have gigs that you've done in the past. If you've been covered by other media stations, include that, and really just, you know, like you said, beef it up. Have them be able to copy and paste the description of you just to put in their story so they don't have to make it up on their own.
And I think an important thing to realize is that different journalists need different things depending on the type of media entity that they are working for. So
Absolutely.
If you're a television station, you need something different than a blogger, than a podcaster, than, you know, a radio station or a print outlet, right?
Exactly. And these EPKs can be these living, breathing documents. So if you're going to send it to TV, you want to have the video and the photo and really smooth audio samples, and then you can pull those if you're going to send it to somebody working on a blog or radio that maybe just need, you know, the text details. That way everyone who's looking at your EPK doesn't have to sift through the stuff that they don't need.
You work with a lot of these different outlets. Does their decision in terms of what to cover sometimes depend on what they have? For example, will a television station, if they don't have footage, they're less likely to, you know, cover
Absolutely.
something?
Yeah, and especially when we send stuff out to the newspapers, our like go-to rule is if you don't include a photo, they're not going to write the story because then they have to take that extra step to reach out and ask for it. Okay. But if they already have everything, that's one less email they have to send, you know, one less reply that they have to wait for. So
this all makes sense. Where does an EPK actually live?
So that varies from artist to artist, and I think whatever works best for them. Putting it on a website's a great idea. Sometimes a PDF is easier to send via email, but what we've been suggesting is to kind of have a request form on your website and have it like live behind the website. That way, like a journalist can request it, you can email it to them, a link to like the live spot on your site. That way, you have a running list of who is looking at you as an artist and who's looking to write about you. A lot of times there's a positive thing. You're like, yeah, someone from Channel 4 wants to look at our EPK. But also, if you ever get into a pinch, God forbid it ever happens, you can, you know, foresee maybe a negative article or a negative news story if something's going on.
Right, right. And what does it actually look like? I mean, does it essentially look like a web page with a list of links? Is it a Dropbox folder with just a number of files in it?
So we would recommend having someone like professionally lay it out for you. Like a website builder, or you can build it in a PDF and have it live on the website with live links, because that's the reason a lot of people don't like sending PDFs, is it's hard sometimes to access the links through. But you kind of want it to look almost like a booklet or a list where you can flip through, have like a table of contents, like, hey, this is where our photos are, this is the gigs that we've done, this is the past media we've been covered in, here are some of our songs, here's who we worked with and collaborated with.
And so the idea is that they can quickly navigate to the pieces that they need.
Yes, like you said, you could click on a link to take you to the photos. You could also be able to scroll down and have a big section. So, but you don't want it just like all just links. You know, you want to have that title, that go-to.
And so every time you send a press release out, are you also just sending a link that says, hey, here's the EPK?
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Okay. All right, good. You've got some great tips here for writing an EPK. Let's go through them. Starting with tip number 1, focus on the core information the media will want to cover. What is that core information?
That core information is any and everything, really. Anything that you think sets you up as an artist. So you want to include, you know, the music that you've done. You want to include, or let's say you're like a different medium artist. You want to have your art on there, including, you know, links to live performances. You want to have the gigs that you've done in the past, the ticket sales. You want to have other places you've been covered in the media. But the most important part is the bio. You really want to lay out who you are as an artist, what you do. And we like to say in PR, if you don't tell your story, someone else will tell it for you. So, I mean, talk with your fans, talk with your bandmates, the people that are around you, and find out really, like, what's your sound, you know, what's your vibe of art, who are the kind of people who are going to enjoy that, because that's the kind of stuff that journalists will glom onto, because that's the text that they can write, you know. Even on TV, they want to have, like, the script written out for their anchors and their reporters. So that's the important part of the EPK.
Is it important to have something in there that makes you different from other artists? Because I often see a lot of bios that feel like they're generic and they could apply to, you know, anybody else who's that type of artist.
Yeah, so what sets you apart? I mean, do you have, you know, an interesting instrument in your band? Have you won an award? Have you been part of a music festival? Were you the headliner? You know, who have you collaborated with? It's stuff like that where people will be like, oh, really? You know.
All right, let's get into your next tip. Tip number 2, it should look professional and be easy to navigate.
Yeah, so we recommend, if you can, to hire someone to lay out your EPK for you. Someone who's
someone meaning a graphic designer?
A graphic designer, a website builder, digital design. And if, you know, that's not in the budget, there's also a lot of free online tools for graphic design these days. Adobe has products that you can trial. There's also, you know, just look online, free graphic design, and lay it out yourself in a way that, like I said earlier, is easy to navigate. You know, go from step to step, have separated sections.
You know, there's websites out there like Fiverr.com where you can hire somebody for relatively inexpensive to do something like that.
Yeah, on a project basis.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's get into tip number 3. Have multiple people prove it multiple times. I like this one because I like to tell people I'm a fantastic speller and I'm just a terrible typer.
Yep. Yeah, you can know how to spell a word, but your pinky finger can fail you.
Yes, that happens often.
Yes, so. And there's nothing that journalists hate more than a typo. With anybody. So have your EPK done by one person. Have your graphic designer look at it. You know, have your mom take a look. You know, you can, like you said on Fiverr, you can find a copy editor to take a quick look just to make sure that, you know, we did an electronic press kit a couple weeks ago, actually, where the front cover, we had it electronic and we printed it. And the front cover printed, there was like a rainbow mark on this guy's face. And we were like, oh, so like if you are going to print it, print one copy before you pay to print 200 of them.
I've done that. I've made that mistake for sure. You know, you mentioned that nobody likes a typo because obviously they don't want to look stupid. Right. By the same token, I say this as an audio guy, pronunciation. If you can, especially if you have, you know, if you a name or something in there that is hard to pronounce, for audio folks, spell it phonetically so that people know how to to say it.
Yeah, and that helps reporters out too if they're coming out for like a live segment, because we don't do those with Arts Beats and Eats. We want to tell the reporter how to say your name and how to send it back to the station so they can have it on the screen as well.
You work a lot with festivals. Is an EPK something that, for example, you should have if you're at a festival? Like, let's say I'm performing at Arts Beats and Eats, and maybe John Witz, and the guys who put that together are going to have reporters that they know are coming from act to act to act. Is it good to have an EPK there, like printed, ready to hand to a reporter if you should get interviewed?
Yeah, I think one of the good things about EPKs is if you do them well online, you should be able to print them as well.
Okay.
So on top of that, when you're there at those festivals, talk to the journalists and the reporters, if you're lucky enough to get one of those morning segments, because they're very friendly and they're willing to work with you, and they'll take your card. Like, you're not being pushy to give them like a business card or an EPK. Okay. And an EPK is a good thing to get into festivals as well.
Yeah. Good to know. All right, next tip. Have a solid distribution plan. What are we talking about here?
So, like we were saying earlier, like, this is something that can live on your website, but at the same time, you should be actively pitching it, to members of the media. Almost every local paper has someone who covers arts and entertainment, and you can find that on a quick Google. A lot of times those emails are provided, and you could just send that out. And you want to have like a pitch, like, hey, my band's doing this gig. They like events and times. And the media really likes them when lots of people are coming out, and in addition, when there's going to be good sound and visual. And
I assume they want like something to tie it to, like,
yes.
Like there's an album release coming out, there's a like you said, a gig or a showing or something like that. Is it the kind of thing where would you include a link to your EPK on a business card?
I think you could do that. I know QR codes are really growing right now, but I wouldn't only have a QR code because sometimes, those glitch.
Yep.
So a link, a QR code on a business card. You could also print them.
Should it be in your email signature? If you're, like you can go into Gmail or whatever and create an email signature. Should it be in your link tree on your Instagram accounts, things like that?
Absolutely. Okay. Everywhere that you can link to your EPK, I would do it. Like, we really don't want to make the journalists dig.
Right.
Even if you send it right to them, they might be doing something else later on. They are on your Instagram. Maybe they're looking at photos, and then they can just, like you said, link tree right there.
Okay, perfect. Last tip. Keep it updated. And it seems obvious, but it's one of those things you actually got to make a point of doing it.
Right. One of the great things about it being electronic is that it can be easily living and breathing. So we'd say at least quarterly, or when you have an album release, when you drop a single, after a gig. One thing is sometimes, you feel like, oh my gosh, I sent out my electronic press kit. Gary Graff at the Oakland Press picked it up. Immediately you're going to want to take the link to that story and put it in your press kit, because those are all things that build you as a more reliable and trustworthy artist.
So, in other words, you want the press to see that other people are writing about this.
Absolutely.
Okay, got it.
Yep. And like I said, it could live in so many formats. If you do print it, that doesn't mean you have to print new ones quarterly. I would, print less. You can also do like flip books online, if you've seen those, where it's a link and you can actually flip through the press kit. So and you can have multiple formats of your EPK, because different journalists prefer different ways to receive information. So.
All right, this is really valuable. Do you have a sample EPK that you give to clients when you're showing them what to build, or do you build it for them? You guys really take care of that?
It really varies artist to artist. So yeah, we don't really do it like plug-in information with our clients. Every client gets a different formatted EPK. Okay.
Because you just might need different things depending on the type of artist you are.
Right, and you can get creative with EPKs. Like have a bright cover. Make it into the format of like a record when you're doing it online. Have video playing in the background while people are reading the information.
Are there any mistakes you've seen or anything that turns off journalists?
I would just say typos and not enough information.
Okay.
I think, journalists can be fans of yours going forward, but right now they're journalists looking to write a story, and they just want to grab that information, plug it into the story, and run it.
Good.
So.
Good. All right. Last thing that we ask everybody who comes on the show. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right, Kamryn Lowler of Catalyst Media Factory, what is the worst piece of advice you've ever heard?
I always hate don't fix what's not broken, because I think that just hinders, progression, in our personal lives and society. Like I was just saying with the electronic press kit, we can always be bettering ourselves, updating things, even if it's not necessarily a problem or it's broken, it could be better. We can move forward. There's a reason that we live in like brick houses now instead of mud huts.
Yeah. So that's often how progress is made, is by breaking things.
Absolutely.
So, you always got to be trying. I mean, I understand if you've got something that works, you want to keep doing it, but that doesn't mean over here on the side you can't be experimenting. And I agree with you 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if people want to know more about Catalyst Media Factory, they can go to the website, which is catalystmediafactory.com.
Yep.
What events have you got? Let's say, because of when this is going to air, towards the end of the summer. What have you got?
Yeah, we'll be looking towards Arts, Beats, and Eats. That's Labor Day weekend every year in Royal Oak. It's going to be a lot of fun, very exciting. I think, they cover all of downtown Royal Oaks blocks, and we'll have music and food and art all over.
Awesome. And it's, look, I know it's been a rough couple of years for events, so it's nice to see this stuff all coming back.
Absolutely.
So, thank you very much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me, Seth.
All right.
I appreciate it.
I am Seth Ressler. Thank you so much for taking a listen or watching or attending, however you may be consuming this, because there's a lot of different ways now. Until next time, Detroit's moving. Keep up.